Morning, I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters in the Pathfinder School. What I'd like to do today is introduce you to the new Pathfinder multi-fuel stove system, go over with you what comes in that kit and the different fuels that it will burn and how to operate it correctly depending on the fuel that you're using. Stay with me. When you open the box for your multi-fuel stove, you'll have several pieces and parts inside that box. The first one will be a fuel tank for liquid fuels. It has a fill line here that tells you the volume of fuel you should put in that tank at any given time to leave airspace to pressurize this tank. You can burn unleaded, white gas, as well as diesel fuel through the stove using this tank. You have a pressurizing device here that's used in conjunction with this bottle to pressurize the tank and feed the stove itself. You have an adapter here that's made so that you can use this stove with a 1 pound propane tank that you buy at any local store. It has an adapter already built into the stove here that's used for isobutane. So you can use isobutane, propane, or liquid gas fuels like white gas, unleaded, or diesel in this stove. It also comes with a toolkit that gives you some extra O-rings, nozzles, a cleaning element, and wrenches to be able to maintain the stove and care for it over time. So let's talk a little bit about how we set this stove up and use it for the different types of fuels. The stove comes with a hose and adapter on it and an on-off valve already set up to accept isobutane tanks. So we open the legs on the stove and put it on a solid level surface. We then make sure that our valve that turns it on and off here is in the off or closed position. We then connect our isobutane tank to that adapter, and there is a seal, O-ring seal there. Tighten it to the seal and you're good. Now, when you get ready to light the stove, all you're going to need to do is crack this valve and you'll hear fuel coming out of the stove. Once you can hear that, you can then light the stove. You can adjust the flame by opening and closing the valve. When you're finished, make sure that you are shut completely off on the on-off valve and remove the tank. Let the stove cool down and you can then coil it back up, fold it in, and pack it away. If you're going to use a 1 pound propane tank, all right, to use a 1 pound cylinder, you're going to need the adapter. And this brass adapter screws directly into the isobutane adapter just like this, and then screws into any 1 pound can of propane, just like this. Once you've got that connected and tight, you can then control again the on-off by turning this valve. As soon as you hear fuel, you can light the stove. And you have control by turning this knob to the on-off position. When you're done, simply unscrew the tank from the adapter. And you want to always unscrew the adapter that directly goes to the tank. You don't want to unscrew the adapter from the stove valve itself because it's going to leak fuel if you do that, because this is an open connection. When you plug this into the top of this tank, fuel is going to come out of here because there's no on-off valve. So you have to put the on-off valve on first by connecting it here and then to the tank, and the reverse of that when you get ready to take it apart. Okay, so let's discuss burning liquid fuels. I filled this holding tank up with unleaded gasoline. Again, you could use white gas in this or you could use diesel fuel. So it's very multifunctional. You're going to need the pickup tube and pressurizing device for this. And you're going to want to connect it here. There's a threaded connection to connect the two together. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the lid, which has an O-ring on it to keep it from leaking into your backpack and things like that, off of your fuel tank. and you're going to want to put the pressurizing device inside. My suggestion is that you load this pickup tube and pressurizing device into your fuel tank and screw it down. Once you've done that, this valve will spin independently and turn. Once you've screwed this into the bottle, you can then turn this black portion here, and it will thread into the adapter where your on-off valve is, to the inside of that adapter, just like this. Run that down fairly tight, just like that. Now, you'll need to pressurize this tank. So you're going to pump up and down on this tank. "15 pumps is probably enough, to be honest. Now, liquid fuel does not act the same way that compressed fuels do. So when you open this valve on the side, the on-off valve, it's going to spray liquid up into the stove through the jet. So what you're going to see is you're going to hear it, and you're going to see liquid coming up through there. That liquid's going to fill up a bowl in the bottom of that stove, and you're going to light it. Just like that. You've got the valve turned off now at this point. You've cracked it long enough to let fuel in there so that you can light the fuel and warm up the bowl. And you're slowly, as it burns down, going to crack this valve to open it up, keeping the tank away from the flames. Let it burn until it starts to burn down a little bit, and slowly crack this valve. Because remember, you've got liquid under pressure. You can see, as soon as it comes open, you get a flame up. It's going to take a little bit to heat up this pickup tube so that it creates draw. Now I've cracked it open a little bit. I can hear fuel releasing. That's heating up this tube that's connected to this. Now you can start to hear it jet properly, slowly but surely. Now we can open the valve. Now that we're drawing fuel, we're not relying on the pressure of the tank. We're drawing fuel with this heated tube. And it's very much the same. You can turn it down. It's just a little bit more finicky with liquid fuel to drop your flame down and maintain more of a simmer, or you can open it up to get high heat. As it heats up, the whole inside of that stove in that bowl area is going to turn solid red from the heat. That's fine, don't worry about that. You'll not need to pump this anymore. The first time you pressurize it, all you're doing is trying to force fuel out. Once it begins to heat up and draw on its own, you won't need to pressurize the tank anymore to draw fuel. It will draw itself. When you're finished, close it off. Let it burn off any excess fuel that's in there for 10 or 15 seconds, and then you can just blow the flame out. And once you finish using this and turn it off, the best way to release any pressure that possibly could be in here without any fuel spitting out from any connections is to just crack this connection at the tank. And when you crack it, if you don't hear anything escaping, you're probably fine. Then you can go ahead and turn this nozzle to release the connection here. You've got a black spinning knob right there that turns that connection. Set this down in case there's any fuel in it so it'll dry out. You can then remove your fuel pickup tube and pressure pump and set it off to the side somewhere to dry out, and replace the cap on your fuel tank down to that O-ring and snug it up. Just like that. Let everything dry out, cool down, and you're ready to pack it back up. Okay guys, that was just a quick introduction to our multi-fuel stove system. Once everything's cooled down, you can fold these legs back over, just like this, to close it up. Take this tube and wrap it around and just tuck it inside of itself, just like this, for storage in a bag or in your backpack.